Everybody can tell a story, but everybody can't share a story. It's okay not to be okay. And one thing about a man that he wants is a man actually definitely wants to be respected.
Mm,
But what does that mean to be respected? It means to be loved. It means to be accepted. It means to
mm.
be inspired. It means
Means
admiration,
to be seen. I'm gonna throw that in
seen
there.
like there. But we never get to that point because the only thing we just say is, "Oh, I want to be respected." But what is that?
Mm.
What is that? Do you express that you want to be loved? You want to be admired? You want to be seen? And I remember a loud boom. When I say boom, for me, military is like a tank went off. I remember the lights, was those fluorescent lights. I remember the lights kind of coming out of the wall, the hanging wall. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I remember grabbing her hand. And I remember a guy saying, yo, everybody stay calm. Went to the door. And I remember coming to that door, hearing all the noise and everything. And I looked to the right. It was a car wash. And at the car wash was in flames. A bomb had went off in the car wash. Changed my life. Changed my life because that was a traumatic experience that I didn't know how to deal with. That was a
The
part
car
of
wash you were supposed to go to.
exactly.
Hey, welcome to God's Glory and Men's Real Stories. I'm glad you're here. And if you're listening for the first time or you're back for another great episode, I want to thank you all for joining us. I want to start by letting you know that your story and what you may be going through, they matter and you're not alone. So try not to worry about what chapter you're in or if you think you're behind, because the truth is, you're right where God wants you. And it's not a coincidence that you're here with a community that cares about you in hopes that you feel God's love as well as see God's glory in men's real stories. So, you know what I'm going to ask before we get started? Do something for me. Let me know you've been here by clicking that thumbs up in the lower corner. That way, that's just your way of showing me and my guests love for this conversation, for these conversations. And if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, go ahead and click it now. It won't be the last conversation you want to enjoy. So if you click it, you'll be sure to be let know every time we upload an episode or we upload a clip or anything. You'll get a notification just letting you know the good work we're doing here. And more importantly, you'll be able to connect with continual guests that I have here. So can't thank you guys enough for all your support. Know that this podcast is nothing without you and the men who God has put it on their hearts to saying yes to joining me. Like today's special guest, whose passion for mental health, actually men's mental health to be exact, flows from all that he's been involved in. This brother's prior career put him up and close and personal with people and spaces that have a way of impacting people's lives, positively or negatively. So, of course, I was excited. I am excited to sit down with him today to hear his story, or should I say God's story, of what it looked like to walk his path. So, join me and welcome our brother, Doug Reed, to the episode. What's going on, brother?
Hey, you know what I say? Let's
Yeah.
go, baby. Let's go. Let's get right into it. Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you, man. And I really appreciate you inviting me into this space. Really appreciate the work that you do. A lot of times people don't realize how much effort, time, and consistency it takes to operate a podcast, especially in this
Yeah.
nature. So I'll give you your flowers just to start off, and I
Thank you, brother.
avail myself to you for this open discussion.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I do appreciate you even recognize that, because you're right. I mean, like, outside of just the fact of we both know what it's like to put on a podcast, put together a podcast, and all the work that goes into that. Sometimes you also know something that I know very familiar is that when we sit in these stories, when we process through these stories that men share with us, when we sit in these spaces with men and hear what's going on or has gone on in their life, that's also a mental like wear on yourself, and that you're sitting there and you're having to process through what this man has shared. And sometimes it's not easy. You don't get to just turn off when it's all said and done and just, okay, well, yeah, I'm good. We're praying for you. Like, sometimes you pray for that brother or that woman, because you feel the severity of like what has taken part in their lives, the directions, the things they've seen. And sometimes there are many times where I don't get to just walk away from that. I take a piece of that with me, and I have to learn to go to God with a lot of this and say, God, I pray that you continue to walk with that person. I pray that you continue to bless them. I know what they've seen, what they've been through, but that's not the end of their story. And so it's a blessing. I truly feel anointed for this space, knowing that when God calls you into a space, you know this well, it's less about like, I don't know if I'm the guy, but more importantly, God equipped me to be the guy
Yes,
for
sir.
what you've called me to. So no, I appreciate that. I thank you for just acknowledging that, and you and knowing that you also put a lot of framework and a lot of work into what you do. Because when I first came on the scene, it was men like you, it was men like Jay, it was men like Jason that just had me like, wow, okay. So there are already voices in this space. Men are talking about this, and more importantly, they're not shying away from the topics that like a lot of people just like, yeah, we don't talk about that. Like we
Yeah,
just you know,
definitely.
let's just keep that to ourselves. So before I even go any far further, I want you to introduce yourself. Who tell the audience, our audience, who is Doug Reed?
Who is Doug Reed?
Yeah.
One of my things I like to say, I'm just a kid from Cincinnati. Just a kid from Cincinnati that grew up, had some challenges, joined the military to learn how to be a better man, more disciplined man, to understand the policies of life. Worked in the federal prison for 25 years, understanding that, coming out of that, and even the effects of that, in regards to mass incarceration, learning that well, and then, working with Black Men Heal, which actually the transparency of my growth actually occurred. One thing I can
Mm-hmm.
say is, and even this platform, and even for you to even consider me on my name mentioned with Jay Burnett and Jason Phillips, like my name mentioned with the goats, like for
Yeah.
but I received that, and I always say that everybody can tell a story, but everybody can't share a story. So the fact that
Mm.
men come on this show
Mm.
to share their story, to impact other men, for them to listen and know that they're in this space, that they're not alone, and it's okay. Like we said a lot, it's okay not to be okay. you know
Yeah.
and we all have some trials and tribulations, and we just want God to be the light under our path. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you invite me into this space, and I want to be able to open the discussion, be vulnerable, and express some things in my life to help me get through.
Yeah, no, that's real. And so even speaking on what you just said of like recognizing that certain certain spaces in our life open the door to our transparency, to our vulnerability. But a lot of times until those spaces welcomed us in and we realize that this is so it's safe here, like I can like I can just put it out there like without any type of attack. That's not always the norm. That's and so I think when we create these spaces to show people what it looks like and to make it normal in this space where you can like say like, so is it's you're telling me it's okay to not be okay, like I, that goes against what I've always heard. Like I was told that you fake it till you make it, and then even when you get there, you keep acting like everything is good, despite what you had to go through to get there.
Mm.
And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I no. Yeah, you got to
Yeah,
almost sit on that. Like,
yeah, and the reason why I say that, because even we say we okay, it's okay not to be okay, but we can't sit there. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
One
mm-hmm,
thing that we have to learn, and I've learned it being in spaces, is our feelings are valid no matter what. Maybe
mm-hmm,
inconsistent, but it's my truth. So they're valid. And one thing about a man that he wants is a man actually definitely wants to be respected. But what does that mean to be respected? It means to be loved. It means to be accepted. It means to be inspired. It means, admiration.
It means to be seen. I'm going to throw that in
Seen.
there.
Like but we never get to that point, because the only thing we just say is, "Yo, I want to be respected." But what is that? What is that? Do you express that you want to be loved? You want to be admired? You want to be seen? So one thing, Jay, and I give it a big shout out to Jay, because same thing. He was saying you got to learn the language. And the language is, you got to know how to express your feelings and identify and what they are, not just on the surface about being respected. Let somebody know that, significant other or whatever, like, it's okay to give me admiration. You show love, but it's okay to acknowledge me. It's okay to give me affirmation. You know what I mean? So that's how I look at it. I think we have to dig deeper into what our feelings look like.
Yeah, no, for sure. Past the surface level ones, the obvious ones that we like to say. Like, I think I was just talking about that with the brother. How, like, the obvious that we always go to. What's the obvious emotion that we feel safe to always express and go to? And it's anger.
Oh, okay. Let's stay there for a minute.
Okay.
Let's stay with anger, and the reason why I say that, because I didn't know I dealt with anger. And I say that, and of course we learn in these spaces that everything usually goes back to our childhood, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So at the age of 4, my father was shot and killed. He was shot by his best friend, who was the oldest. Only memory I have of my father is at that funeral. And at that funeral, in that cemetery, was a big oak tree. And I remember that. But the thing that I carried for a whole lot of years was anger. Anger for the fact that I did not have a father. And if you think about it, I just got finished with an event in Philly, Todd's Murdoch, Men of Courage. But he expressed, and I'm going to throw this out there. He said, our first heartbreak was our father. And I said, oh my God. Let me dig deeper into that. I'm starting to get into this space around mental health and what it looks like. And when I thought about it, I thought about the absence of, like I said, I didn't know it. I knew what happened, and I learned that after research. I never forget my mother giving me that newspaper clipping, and it happened March 17th, 1967. I was 4 years old. And I actually lost that newspaper clipping. And I had a nephew actually send me a computer. They found it on the internet. Thank God for the internet. But I dealt with that for a lot of years. So that anger, I would get angry at my friends. They didn't know why. You know how we used to talk about each other. Well, your mother looked like this, your brother like this. But when somebody mentioned my father,
yeah,
I just went off, and nobody understood. Now, my friends helped me because they was like, "Oh no, man, you mentioned his father. His father ain't living," but never knew how to deal with that anger. Didn't know what it looked like.
Did you? Okay. And of course, and I would say at that young of an age, you didn't even know what the true emotion was behind it. Like you just,
No, sir.
I just said this. I think it's fair to say that we are born with a almost like with a temper that we alert people with, of like, I'm angry because my diaper needs to be changed. I'm angry because I'm hungry. And a lot of times we grow up and nobody actually ever says, well, how do you really feel? Like what's the real emotion there? Or like what is it that signals your anger? Like when somebody says something about your dad, what's the first thing that hits you
It's
before you resort to like anger and showcase that? Because that's what people see. But I've recognized that when I used to go back and think about what fueled my anger, there was a feeling that initially hit me before I jumped to anger.
I would say the bitterness, uh, just the fact that feeling like unworthy because I didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
dad,
Mm-hmm.
uh, feeling betrayed,
Mm.
because I mean, like you said, we don't know now, but in reality, if I had to say now, I would say I was mad at God
Mm.
because I'm
It's
saying,
fair. It's
yo,
valid.
he was
Yeah,
taken
that's
away,
valid.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and of course the defense mechanism went up, and out of that defense mechanism came a reaction. That reaction
Mm-hmm.
was to want to fight, want to
Yeah.
react to bring harm to somebody else because I was hurting.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that's
You
it.
understand what I'm saying?
Yep. No, I do.
And
I
to be
do.
honest, I would say how it really, and I'm saying this for the first time, that's how safe I feel. It trickled down into my kids where they
Yeah.
where they had anger issues.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's real, and that's the part why we have these kind of discussions. You
Yeah.
know, to say, hey, brother, you know, men, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So I want to die. If it's cool with you, I want to dig a little deeper, even into what you just said about like how our father wounds become our kids' father wounds. Of how did and normally I like to go to the first child because I think the first child is the one who always experiences like our raw emotions and everything that's still so unfiltered that it's just like I'm if honestly I wish we could just come with a note that we could give to our kids. Listen, I'm still raw and trying to figure this out. I have no idea what I'm doing with you, but the truth is I have no idea what I'm doing with me.
yeah.
And
But
so
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, it just came to mind because I never knew myself. Uh, and openly, one of the things, like I got divorced. So, now we talking about character, but part of that was the fact that I never knew who I was. I was
Mm,
still struggling.
yeah,
Like you said, now I put this mask on. I was able to put a mask on and just walk around like everything's okay,
right.
but I was never okay. And
Yeah.
that led to some, the infidelity that led to a lot of different things. And even if we go back, we talk about our character. We talk about
Hmm.
unforgiveness.
Yeah.
We talk about what one of the things in the military is you always want to set the example. So going back to your kids, you want to set the example of being a good
Yeah.
dad. Well, I set that example. Thinking about that, you know, my oldest and what he went through. He probably went through the blunt. And actually, even my middle son, we was in helping my daughter out feed the homeless, and we were on the street corner, and there was a cop there, and he hit me with something that same thing. He hit me with something. I was like, oh my goodness. And he was talking to the cop, and he said, "Yo, growing up in that household was rough, man." And I'm thinking, "Yo, what you mean it was rough? I did the best I could." But he never knew what the best. The best was to set the example and be the man that I am today. But I wasn't that.
Yeah.
Even the anger issues. I remember standing in front of we was going in a Five Guy. We had a discussion, and I got a little angry and I got loud, and he said, yo, dad, you ain't got to talk to me that way. Now, you can imagine how that is. What? I got to talk to you that way. Then he said, we're standing at the door of Five Guys. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, it is crazy how when you as you share that, I even think about what you said earlier about how like our feelings are valid, but sometimes it's hard to validate the feelings of others when it seems like an attack on our job as a parent. When it seems like it's an attack on our job as a husband or wife. It's you're sitting there and it's like the thoughts going through your mind are like what they're saying is valid, but if what they're saying is valid, and this is a good differentiate of that. Just because it's valid, if I say your feelings are valid doesn't mean that I'm saying they're true, but sometimes it feels like when you validate a person's feelings, you're saying what they say is true, and what the truth is it is true to them and how they see it and how they feel it. And so you sitting with that is the whole reason why having the intelligence to say, hey, whoa, hey, you know what, that stung a little bit, but his experience and what he said and how he saw it and how he experienced it is valid, is true to him, regardless like what that says about you. And that's hard.
Yes,
Like
sir.
that's hard.
And even my daughter, I remember, I mean, in that case where, we talk about divorce, she said how she felt. The boys didn't. Now, coming from a daughter, that's a whole nother level. And that's why I said, because when we look at it from that perspective, we talk about our character. Now we have to rebuild the character. We have
Yeah.
to rebuild the trust.
Yeah.
And that goes for any relationship.
Yeah.
I
For
mean,
sure.
and that's the part, especially men, because when we look at men want to be, we talk about acknowledged, but we want to be respected. There was, I was looking at some other things today. We want to be respected, but we want to be worthwhile. We want to be valuable, but all those things represent power. Those are some adjectives that we use to explain power, but we don't even know the words to express it. So when you start talking about how we want to be, as far as setting the example, we talk about the character, and we talk about just being able to express our feelings. One has to know himself, and that's taking a
Yeah.
deeper dive. We got to
Yeah.
acknowledge the fact that we all have certain traumas. Can we take a ability for those traumatic events to happen and have the emotional intelligence to be able to talk about it? Because then, like I
Yeah.
told you, when I used to talk about my father, even try to explain it like I did for you, I would break down and start crying
Yeah.
because of all the pain that I felt.
And
But
you held in.
the more and more I was able to tell that story, come on,
Yep.
that's when the healing started.
Yep.
And I was like, yo, if that started my healing process, then guess what? I'm gonna use my voice for other men. Show them. I have no problem showing my emotions.
Yeah.
I may cry in a minute, but then again, I can suck it up and I can drive on, just to let you know
Yeah.
that I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know
I
what I
think
mean?
that matters though. That's
Mm-hmm.
like it's one thing to talk about it and to feel the emotion, but it's less about others, but it's almost like I love me so much that I am tired of holding on to the emotions or the emotions that follow these feelings. I know I feel sad right now, but I won't give myself permission to cry right now. I know I feel like rejected or feel unseen, but I won't give myself the space to say, you know what? I'm not okay with that. Like I'm tired of just pushing it aside. Like, it's cool, when the truth is everything inside of me is saying it's not cool. And every time I hide it away and I store it away, it's like, cool, we'll catch you another day. I'll catch you another day. Eventually you're gonna have to let this out.
And that was the whole thing. And really understanding myself, and that I had a true father.
Yeah.
That father was
so you know, I gotta ask how you got there, like because that I think that story, you know, don't get me wrong, I love when men come on and share their father son bond of like how my dad was so impactful in my life, how he was so present. Everybody has a different story, but there's nothing like hearing the story of how a man realized that I was given an earthly father, whether he was present or not, but I always had a heavenly father who was there for everything that I went through. And it was in that moment where I was reconnected with him that was just like, okay, now things really start moving now. Because honestly, as I was about to say, because that is where we are connected to the identity that our fathers was supposed to bestow upon us, was supposed to connect us to. When it didn't happen for us, he was there to say, hey, look, I know who I don't know why I just saw it, but I saw the scene from The Lion King when the monkey was like, I know who you really are. And we all have, for those who are believers in Christ and who have submitted to that relationship with their heavenly father, we have that moment where he's like, but I know who you really are underneath all of that, underneath who you had to be to survive, underneath all of what you chose and you took on to be able to cover up the pain and the hurt. I know who you really are.
And you know, and for me, just you know, I think you kind of summed it up before. Like, I was sick and tired of being tired. You know what I mean? And tired of being in my feelings and not being able to express it. So when I got on bending knee and I had that encounter with God, I told him everything I was feeling.
Yeah.
Everything. You know how they say you just cry out everything. Good, bad, and indifferent.
Yep.
And then he said, look, I sent my only begotten son to be your comforter, to be your advocate, to stand in the gap for you. He died for your sins because I had to deal with all unforgiveness, everything. And he said, you know what? If we can put it like, you know, if we can say we was in a courtroom based on our character. And he said, you know what? I've seen it all. I know what the world says about you. I know everything they said about you. But you know what? When I hit this gavel, I want you to understand, not guilty. And I was
Yeah, that's heavy. That's powerful. Yeah,
you know,
that's real.
you understand what I'm saying?
That's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and then we have, you know, we had the Jesus moment where we say, you know what, God, you got me out of this. You made me feel the way that I do, valuable and love. Everything I do is to give you all the glory.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I do.
like
It's almost like we don't feel worthy of what you just acquitted me for. Like I to myself, I feel fully guilty. I can look back at all of it and be like, yeah, I did that. You were there too, weren't you? You saw when I did that. and you're telling me that I'm forgiven. You're telling me that I'm free. Like I don't have to carry this stuff. I don't have to like live with the guilt of all that. I don't have to live with all that how bloody my hands are. And you're telling me you so wait, let me get this straight. You've taken all of that and you love me. Like you love the guy you've seen, and you're telling me I'm forgiven and that I should forgive myself and love me the way you love me.
Man, I remember
That's
listening.
so much to process. Like that's just so much to sit with, to just be like,
I listened to a song
I'm
by
having a
James
hard
Brown,
time for yeah, I'm having a hard time forgiving myself, and you're telling me you just forgave me like that.
and that's when we realized, like, one thing, and for men, we all talk about it. Like somebody has to, you got to be accountable.
Yeah.
You got to have accountability partner.
Come on.
I got one. Knows everything I do. Everything I do. And I look at that as far as being accountable because he laid the foundation for me. As they say, he knew me before I was formed in my mother's womb.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He knew the ending before the beginning.
Yeah.
I am that
And he loved you
masterpiece.
before yeah, 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 yeah.
We are that
Yeah.
masterpiece, brother. We are. And that's why we do what we do. That's why we saying, look, we'll create spaces that say, we'll create spaces and allow others to come in like you're doing, to come in and tell your truth. How are you
Yeah.
getting by doing this? What gives you the motivation? What makes you say, let's go?
Yeah.
Because we got generations and generations and generations after us that now, Rob, for real, the way I look at it, their blood is on our hands. That may be a little heavy,
Mm,
but their
that
blood is on our
is.
hands.
That is.
Because what you know what? We have to operate in the God-given gift that He's given us. It's called
Yeah.
responsibility. What is
Yeah.
responsibility? Responding to the God-given ability that He gave you. And we have to realize that. And then even, excuse me, even for men, you have to understand sometimes that acknowledgement, that admiration, everything that you're looking for, it may not come the way you want it to be. But
Yeah.
when you look at the foundation of who we are, actually, if you look at the foundation of a building, right? Of a skyscraper.
Okay. Big foundation.
There's a cornerstone say established in, for me, 1963. That's when it was established. And it's going to grow. And it's this skyscraper. Everybody comes to the big city. They see the skyscraper and they say, wow, look at that. Oh my God, that's beautiful. Nobody pays attention to the cornerstone. Nobody pays attention
Mm,
to the foundation. Because look,
yeah.
our shoulders, we want to be broad and put everything on our shoulders. God said, look, wait a minute. I told you in my word to place all your cares and concerns on me. They don't belong to you. They don't belong to you. And you just got to, like you said, be after, like David, after God's heart. But understand though that we got to have that faith. And it was a book that a John Maxwell book, uh, uh,
Okay.
How to Become a Leader Influence, I think it was, and it talked about faith. And me and my wife and a friend of ours, we have a joke about it. It was a class that we took. We have a joke about it because in that book it talks about a guy that crossed Niagara Falls, right? I don't know if you ever
Mm,
been to Niagara Falls. And it's come
not
on now,
yet.
come on, and it's God made. Come on,
Yeah.
you got to get there, and the reason why because it's unbelievable. So Niagara Falls from the U.S. side to the Canada side, a guy crossed it on a tightrope, right? Go back and just vision that. And even for anybody who's listening, I need you to tap into it, go look at it, look at that. But then he crossed it with a man on his shoulders. Rob, you got that much faith in me that you have enough faith and trust in me that I'm going to go across this on a tightrope. Then I'm going to put I'm going to be on your shoulders. We talking about
that puts into perspective.
We talking about Niagara Falls faith.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, can we ever get there where we have the faith that God is going to take care of us like that?
Yeah.
I can give you a whole lot of scenarios where I didn't know how I was going to get out of the situation. I didn't know how money was going to come. Matter of fact, just think about it. Think about, I'll say your struggles as a young couple and having your first child, right? Think about the fact that you didn't have anybody to watch him. And I did the research and the child care. And you said, nah, I don't, there's no possible way we're going to be able to pay for child care. It just don't add up. We can't do it. I guarantee. Yep. I will, how they say, I will put money on it that you were able to put your child in child care.
Yeah.
Where did that money come from?
Yeah.
It was the same check that y'all been, I don't know. I don't speak for myself, living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah.
But somehow that money came for childcare.
And it's funny because even in hearing you tell that story, I used to hear my mom say things like that. And I never understood it until I became an adult. And I had to stop and say, how are we doing this right now? Like last time I checked this, the math said that we had just enough. And so like, where did this, like, how did we restructure things? Like what? And I remember those moments where my mom used to be like, God made a way. And I used to be like, yeah, but I even remember I used to fight with my mom and say, yeah, but he didn't have to make a way that way. You didn't have to put us in private school. You could have put us in public school. That could have saved a lot of time and money. Why would you go through that? Why would you? It was almost like I was like, you're taking God out of his way to do something for you that you don't have to do, but yet God wanted to do for her. And I never really understood that until I got older.
Mm-hmm. Same thing. That's what I say, in comparison to that Niagara Falls type faith.
Yeah.
Because we just had to trust and believe.
Yeah.
Had to trust and believe that we was going to get through it. And he shows up every time. Go ahead. Right.
No, for sure. So tell me this, when you went off to the military, during your time in the military, do you feel like a lot of what you saw and what you went through and just even how that played on your life? Because I'm sure there were moments where you carried those moments from the military into your next career, but do you feel like your faith at that time was where it is now, to where you could say, oh, I always knew that it would work out? Like, how did that look then?
Nah. Only thing I knew. So remember, I'm searching.
Okay.
I'm really searching. I'll say it like this. I'm really searching for a father figure.
Okay.
They called him Uncle Sam. So what happened to me was I went to Frankfurt, Germany. That was my first duty station. When I was over there, the atmosphere or the military environment was leadership. That's all they press, leadership. Military has a manual. I think it's still in existence today, called FM 22-100 Leadership. I went to the promotion board. Out of the promotion board, they get you on your uniform. They ask you questions. The highest score I have ever achieved in my life, out of a maximum 200, I scored 199.8.
Wow.
You talking about accomplishment. So when you talk about accomplishment, I felt very powerful. Accomplishment equals power, right?
Yeah.
But also, November 25th, 1985, I was with my ex-wife. I had a BMW. I always kept it clean. Always kept it clean. And I remember riding with her, and she wanted to go to the store. And I was like, come on now. I ain't going to the store. I got to get my car clean. We're not, that's the first thing first. I got to pull up in the parking lot at least to be clean. But I gave in. We had somewhat of an argument, and ended up going in the store. And I remember a loud boom. When I say boom, for me, military is like a tank went off. So the loudest, imagine the loudest explosion that you have ever heard in your life.
Okay.
And I remember the lights, was those fluorescent lights. I remember the lights kind of coming out of the wall, the hanging wall. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I remember grabbing her hand. And I remember guys saying, yo, everybody stay calm. What they say, fight, what is it, flight?
Fight, flight, fawn, or freeze.
Only thing I knew was flight. Grabbed her hand, went to the door. And I remember coming to that door, hearing all the noise and everything. And I looked to the right. It was a car wash. And at the car wash was in flames. A bomb had went off in the car wash. Changed my life. Changed my life because that was a traumatic experience that I didn't know how to deal with. That was the
car wash you were supposed to go to.
Exactly. And even now to this day, real skeptical going through a car wash.
Okay, so what did that wow. I mean, like, what went through your mind later on as you sat with that? Or did you even sit with it of like?
It was almost like, I can't say there was preparation beforehand because, see, we were on what they call alert, meaning there was always a threat. And we talk about it in the early 80s before we got terrorism here. There was, matter of fact, it was called the Red Army faction. They were always threatening the military bases. There was bombs. I mean, on top of that, you talk, matter of fact, not even really having a relationship with God, but I knew before I tried to start that car, I had to say a prayer because of the car bombings that was going up. Saying, God, please don't let this thing blow up. That's the kind of atmosphere that over there for like 2 years on top of the bombing.
Sheesh. Okay. That puts things into perspective a little bit more.
Okay, and you want to add it, then add the drinking on there to wash away the pain and the problems. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that gives me another feeling. Not that I was an alcoholic, but that's things I resorted to.
Right. Yeah. No. And that's what a lot of us do. A lot of us, because we don't know how to process what could happen, what my life is like, the fear of having to close my eyes and pray every time. There's a space of like, because I don't know what to do with all of this, I have to numb everything inside of me for as long as I can to get through, to whatever comes next. It's real.
And then, but the military changed my life because of that environment as far as discipline. I couldn't wait to get back to the States. That was our saying. It was like, where you from in the world? Me, yo, Cincinnati. That's where I'm from. But the thing
Right.
about it, I learned the discipline, and to be transparent, I remember. We talking about the encounter with God. I remember even after out of the military, even understanding who God was. I remember having, as we say, a discussion with God and saying, "Look, Lord, you gave me all this ability. Like I know leadership. I know leadership. How am I supposed to operate in your kingdom? But I mean, how does this fit in? I don't understand. What am I supposed to do? And I got introduced, actually by my wife, to Miles Monroe. I was like, oh wow, this is it. This is how leadership in the kingdom works. This is how character and that's why I mentioned before, rebuilding your character. He has a segment on that. I was like, oh, this is why. And then as I, transpired, I mean, in life, and he was saying like, look, men are looking at you. You got something for them to identify. I want you to be a fisherman, a fisher of men. I'm like, Lord, no, you got, I got this thing I say like, Lord, stop playing. You play too much. You know what I mean? Like, no, you like what Moses say, like, no, honestly, you got the wrong guy.
I mean, you got the wrong guy. Yeah, I can't talk. I can't. That's not what I do. I stutter when yeah. I'll throw you every excuse in the world to try to get off the hook of this.
Like, Lord, that, and then same thing. I accepted that. That's why we're here today.
Yeah.
I realized that, and it took a while for me to accept that. Like, people kept telling me like, yo, bro, when you speak, man, people listen. I'm like, what they listening at? Like, I'm just like you. There's like, no, there's something special about you, man. Just like we were talking beforehand, when we start explaining, I got a little podcast. No, you have a wonderful podcast.
Yeah.
And I had to take into account that, okay, Lord, I get it. I'm gonna take it for what you said. You said I was fearfully and wonderfully made. Okay, well, you know what? I believe you.
Yeah. I think it's true that God takes the little we have, the little that we present, what we bring to the table, the little that we say, God, I don't know what you can do with this, but I got a couple fish and a couple loaves of bread here. Like, I mean, it's not much. It's nothing really. And allowing him to take what the little we have, to take the brokenness and the trauma and the stories of things we've carried from one career as in the military to our other careers and serving the government and other careers as you worked in the prison system. I think he takes all of that and he says nothing's going to go to waste. I'm going to use all of this little that you have. I'm going to take it and I'm going to use it now for you to speak to the men that you've been around all this time anyway. You've seen it firsthand. I think that was the one thing that really like as I kind of just listened to a little bit of like who Doug Reed was, it was like, man, God had positioned Doug in so many different spaces, from the military around men and women who were all searching, to the prison where men were all coming to what they thought might be the end of a story. You saw the ins and outs of every transition, and it was like, okay, so now let's do something with that. Like, you've had these conversations. You've been amongst it. You know exactly what it looks like to just sit in your pain and wallow. You know exactly what it looks like to allow your pain to allow you to live out of it and make rash, ironic decisions and irate decisions of like, I'm going to allow my emotions to now flow through me to make a mistake that now I have to like sit here and I got to sit down.
Mm-hmm. And
Go ahead.
I was gonna say one of the jobs I had in the prison was, I did the processing in and out. So that means I strip search men. And I remember saying to myself, I'm seeing this man at his lowest point, like humiliation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember saying, look, I don't want a man to go through this, man. How do I help build a man? We talk about that character. How do I help him rebuild his character? How do I let him know who my God is for him to identify? Like, look, man, whatever it is, you can get through it.
Yeah.
Life has its challenges. Of all the thing everything that we've done, life has its challenges. But you got to stay on that path. You got to stay on that
Yeah.
straight and narrow.
Well, okay. So do you feel like, and I think you're the best person to answer this. Do you feel like you can build a man who doesn't want to be built, who's lost hope, and who doesn't see past the darkness in front of him?
Only thing I'm gonna tell you, brother, let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
So what does it take?
It's gonna take everything in my being. Like, look, if if the three Hebrew boys can be in a fiery furnace and trust God and not get burned,
Yeah.
then I can avail myself and give you all that I got. If
Yeah.
you trust and believe that you can do it.
And I guess that's my thing. Sometimes you run into men at their lowest, as you said earlier, where you're processing them in a space where it doesn't get any worse than this. Sometimes men feel like, you know what, at this space, I'm going to lay down and mentally, emotionally check out. I'm done. And then there are men who feel like, okay, if I can't go any lower than this right here, if this is the rock bottom, if this is as bad as it gets, then that means there's only one way. There's only one direction. And as I like to say, if you look at the rock that you're on, you'll realize that you're on the rock of Christ. But the question is, are you willing to get up and to take a step? Like that's the only thing you got to really worry about. Like, I'm not asking you to take 10. I'm not asking you to like look into. I'm asking you to take one step. And I guess the question is, do you ever feel like it speaks to like who Doug Reed is when a man's like, I don't even want to take any more steps. I'm out. I'm out of steps, brother. And there's nothing, like, if you had been through what I've been through, if you had seen what I've seen, then you'd understand why I don't want to take any more steps. Because every time I take a step, it's like I get knocked down, and I'm tired of getting knocked down, brother.
Mm-hmm. You know what I used to say, man? And I go, about the story and the man and his son and at the water. And he said, God, just help me with my unbelief.
Yeah.
Help me with my unbelief.
Sheesh. Yeah, that's good. That is that, and that's so real. Think about like how humble he had to say, yes, I'm having trouble believing. So help me with my unbelief.
Talking about. Now I was going to say, we talking about feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
Expressing ourselves.
Yeah.
And he's saying, look, help me with my unbelief.
Yeah. Yeah, that's real. There's a space where I think that you do have to say, God, I haven't done this much. I don't know what it's like walking with you, but right now, from my vantage point, I don't think there's anything else that can happen. So that's good. Like, God, can you help me with my unbelief? Because I don't see another way. I don't see a way out. All I see is darkness.
Yes, sir. And that's where And a lot of times we have these experiences, man, that, you know, in all actuality, we saying there's no other way. Like, you know, Lord, help me with this. You know,
Yeah.
I'm at the highest tower calling your name. Like, I
Yeah.
I need you. And then once we realize and we understand who He is, a sovereign God, man, and understand like the accountability what men want. He's saying, look, I got some principles for you. I got things lined up for you to be accountable, but you got to trust and you got to believe in me. And then you
Yeah.
got, I mean, even for me, man, like one of the things I struggle with because I don't have a college degree, and I've been in some spaces that I'm like, yo, what the heck am I? What, you
What
know?
am I
And they
doing here?
like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. That's
You know,
real.
I'm talking to doctors and psychiatrists, and you know, in these spaces, and they looking at me like they want my input, and I'm like, what? And then same thing, you know, just reminded, you know, and we think about like, yo, God, you play too much. Like, yo, like this is all you.
Yeah.
Like this all
Yeah.
you. Doug can't.
Yeah.
There's no way Doug can do
Okay.
that.
So how does that speak to like how earlier you were like, okay, as men, we want respect, which in
Hmm.
when all of it adds up, it equals power.
Hmm.
How does that speak to our strength or lack of strength in exchange for what he can do when we run out?
Because we got to understand like these situations that we've been in that we couldn't get. We didn't know how we was going to get out. He like you said, he made a way. And then
Yeah.
when we take it to account Abba, our Father.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we say, so with that relationship with our Father, you're like, I'm the favorite son, right? Lord, let me show you what I can do. You
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Like I have on your character. I put on this coat of praise. Like I am who you say I am.
Yeah.
You know, let there be no doubt about it. And it's, same thing with Moses. Moses was like, yo, so Lord, what do I tell them when I go back? Who you are? Like, what's your name? And he says, I am who I am. So with
Mm-hmm.
that lived experience and being in those spaces, that's a reminder. I am who I am,
Yeah.
and I'm God's son.
Yeah. 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 No, and I mean, and for sure, so I guess the thing that I always wrestle with is the fact that, like, matter of fact, this is probably one of my focal scriptures right now that I sit with a lot of. That it's in my weakness that He is strong, and it's in my weakness. A lot of people get this wrong of like where I am weak, then He is strong, but it's where I am weak, I am strong. But it's not because of my own strength. It's because of what God is doing through a vessel. It's almost like it reminds me of like Samson's story that I just recently heard at church of how like he was captured. His own people turned him over to the Philistines. He was bound by rope and there came 1,000 men. And it said, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. And at that point, the ropes broke. And the only weapon he had was a donkey's jawbone. So let me get this straight. You got 1,000 men coming, and it was because of the Lord's strength that He was able to slay 1,000 men who have swords, spears, and shields, and you got a donkey's jawbone.
Mm-hmm.
It just reminds me that like I'm not a weak guy. I've struggled, pushed through, and made some great strides on my own. But it's in those moments where I can say, God, I can't do this. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can't beat all these men. I can't beat this situation that's coming against me. I can't overtake these accusations at work. I'm having the hardest time raising this family and doing this husband thing all at the same time. God, I need your help.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm you got this now. I need the Spirit of the Lord to come upon me, because at this point I am batting zero right now.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's looking at me sideways. My boss is looking at me sideways. My kids are starting to look at me sideways. And I'm looking at myself sideways when I look in the mirror. And it's like, God, this is where I need you to meet me. I need you to show me the man you see, because I'm having trouble seeing that man right now and showcasing that man to everybody who's dependent on me. Everybody, including myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it starts with us. Like, if we don't see ourselves from an identity, the identity that he has bestowed upon us, the identity that a lot of our fathers never put on us, then it's hard to walk into into life and be the husband that he called us to that live within the parameters that we were called to live in. Because I know a large part of my story was that I knew he called us to marry, to find a wife. But the problem was, I did things backwards. I never found me before I found a wife. So I found a wife, and then I needed the wife to help me find me.
Come
Help
on,
me
bro.
put together me. I don't want to tell you this, but I'm still a damaged product, and that
Mm-hmm.
came from all the damage that came well before I ever met you. So help me find me, and that's where a lot of us are still sitting.
It's like a
Same with
puzzle.
yeah. It's like I'm missing pieces, but I'm going to jump ahead and go ahead and do this wife thing. Now I'm going to do this father thing, and then in the midst of all of it, I realize, anybody got a drink? Because I don't know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody got a way that I can just, like, I can tap out for a second? Anybody got a way that I can just step back from everything? Because I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't even know who I am. Who
But he
how did
told
I
you,
get here?
you were supposed to look at the bigger picture. It's like the puzzle. You're supposed to look at the completion of it. We never look at the completion of what it looked like. We just put all the pieces and said, "Oh, I figured it out." Oh, now we want to look at the bigger picture. He knew your ending before the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. But see, so know this. Now, I will say that I had a long time where I was an unbeliever. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't believe in the beginning. I didn't believe in the middle. I didn't believe, I know this may blow a lot of people away, but I didn't begin to actually seek after God. I didn't begin to knock until 2022. So you're talking about, like, I'm 40 years old. And at this point in my life, I've finally just said, all right, I don't know what I'm doing. I think it's clear. I mean, look around. I didn't burn this whole place down. like, can you do anything, or am I past the date of age? Like, is it too late for you to do anything for me? Should I have called you when I was 20?
And when was that? 20 what?
2022.
2022. So for me it was what's this? Maybe roughly 20. I would say 2011. And
Mm,
you know, they say a wise man is not wise to age 60, and I'm 60.
mm.
So I accept it now. But
I would say a wise man is not wise until he receives the wisdom that comes from someone that's bigger than him. Because it's crazy how I used to think I was so wise. I thought I was so, like, I thought that I was getting away with all kind of stuff. I thought that I had outdone the system. I had snuck past my wife. I was portraying this look to everybody around me. I thought I was wise. I thought I was good. Like, I thought I was pretty crafty. I mean,
yes,
sometimes I
sir.
looked at myself in the mirror and was like, "You a bad boy."
Yeah, boy, sure is. Sure are.
Until it caught up to me.
Well, see what happened. We looked in the mirror, but we didn't stay there long enough to look deep inside of who that person really was.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
We didn't,
yeah,
we didn't take into account who it was. We took a glance.
yeah.
You ever stand in the mirror and just really look in the mirror and look in your own eyes? It'll frighten you. But that's when you know,
Mm,
I got to make changes. I got to
yeah.
accept God for who He is and trust and believe Him.
I think we all get to that point. I
I,
think there's
I know for a
there's
fact.
there's a divine appointment where we all have come face to face with God, and we come face to face with ourselves, and we see how ugly it is. We see how much we've messed up, how broken it is. And we bring, as I said earlier, we bring those pieces and all that mess to God and say, I know I messed it up. I messed it up. And I'd understand if you were like, you can't do anything with it now. Um,
And that's why, even for me, it's like, as moving forward now, even for me, I'm like, God, what's next? Where you want me to go?
yeah,
Who am I supposed to see?
yeah,
Oh, you're supposed to get on Rob Moore's podcast.
yeah.
You
No,
understand what I'm saying?
it's just like that. It's literally just like that.
It's literally just like that. You know what I mean? I went to see a friend today. He in a rehab center. I need you to go see him. Yeah, he said he's all right, but he's not all right. I need you to go see him.
Yeah,
He tells us, like, me and my wife, we talk about it, and I think now, because there's always this occurrence in your life where you know that you were supposed to talk to somebody, that God
mm,
told you to talk to him, and you didn't. I remember me and my
yeah,
wife just talking about today, and I never want to be in a situation where I say, I missed it. I missed it. Because we don't know when the next time that opportunity is coming.
or if it'll happen at all.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
I know
that's
that
why,
feeling.
and it's like, no, 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 God, I'm not missing it.
But
I'm
you
gonna
know what's
follow through.
cool about that though, Doug?
Mm-hmm.
That I think about how my mom used to handle me when I messed up or missed things or I didn't do them right. And I felt like I didn't feel any grace. I didn't feel like it. I felt like she was so upset with me that it kind of made me scared to mess up again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say the beauty of walking with God is that his grace is so sufficient, and that when I fall short, when I miss the mark, when he tells me to do something and my fear keeps me from doing it, or my fear keeps me in still longer than I should have, he's so loving that there's space to say, God, I'm scared. And that's been me a lot of, God, I'm scared. And it's like this story just happened yesterday. If I remember the first time I was just honest and I said, God, I'm scared. Like, I know you're asking me to do something and you know that I want to be obedient, but I'm scared. And there came a moment where he was like, I understand. It's almost like he was like, that's valid. Your
Mm-hmm.
feelings are valid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I need you to set your feelings to the side. And if you have to, I need you to do it scared,
Mm-hmm.
because I know what you don't know. And more importantly, I know that your feelings are not what's going to lead you. It's valid that they're a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
I had feelings too, but I need you to do it scared. And I reference that all the time, and that there are still moments where I am like, how did I get here? Why am I here? And what do you have me doing here right now? And he reminds me, do it scared. Do it scared.
How many how
I
many
didn't bring you
bat-
here.
how many battles in the Bible do we see that outnumbered, scared, can't talk, fearful, like, and God told them the same thing.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's the same. Our stories are that now. Like, your stories are that. Like I love to reference Bible stories, but I like to think back to like there's a story that Doug was just sharing. I'm sure just sharing with some other men of, like, man, I was outnumbered. Man, listen to me. I at that point I was out, man. I didn't have enough. We were flipping through all the, okay. There's no way how we gonna do it. And I think it's one thing to look back and see how God worked in another man's life, worked in another and somebody in the Bible's time. But I think sometimes we forget to look back and be like, you know what? In the book of Doug, chapter 3, man, look, God did it. God showed up right then in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And his strength came upon me. And I was able to do something that previous Doug couldn't do alone, couldn't do
Because
on his own.
these are new books and new chapters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
1,000
Yeah, yeah,
years
yeah,
from
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Come on, these new books and new chapters.
But you know what? It'll be the book that your kids will look back on one day to say, I know how the book started.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes for any man that's listening. I know how the book started. But at a certain point, my dad, my uncle, my grandfather, they said, you know what? And at that point, God's strength came upon me. And I began to show up differently. I began to father differently. I began to see my wife in a way to where the same way my heavenly father, her father, saw her instead of how I had previously seen her,
Mm-hmm.
and treated her in a way to where my father would be proud of me. I think that we are well on to knowing that it's through what God is doing in our stories, how he's equipping us and putting us in places where I think we can both say, why am I here? How did I get here? And do you, like, you guys know who I am, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
y'all like, okay, all right. I just, I'm just curious how I'm here. It's like, once again, I remember how I think about how, like, God opened these doors because he knew that he was ordering our steps.
Yes, sir.
He knew that he needed to speak through us into and into the lives of men who are looking for a space, looking for the safety to be fully authentic, to say what they've never felt comfortable saying, to
Mm-hmm.
say what has been against, well, men don't say that, men don't talk about that. Yeah, but see, this is not that, and this is not that space, and this is a space where today, if you choose to talk about it, I want you to feel the strength in speaking up about something that you have held in inside. And don't stop there.
Mm-hmm.
No. You can cry here in this space. Like, it's safe to cry here. Like, how many men, I'm just curious, how many men do you see give themselves permission when you go to different events, when you speak at different things, they give themselves permission to cry?
You know what actually helps when I has started doing this is telling men, I give you that permission. I give you permission to feel safe. I give you permission to express how you feel. And even going back, what I keep I keep hearing is, if God is with me, who can come against me and succeed? You understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. No, I
Like,
do.
like,
It puts a battery in your back.
yeah, that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
But of course we're flesh. Our pastor preaching now, like,
That.
look, I choose to be spiritually happy, bro. you
Mm,
know, and we think about
mm,
our history and all the stories, like we are that new chapter, man. So, and even I think about even think about this, like, this podcast is a legacy, it's history. Like, nobody can
yeah.
take the voice away.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true.
And that's why, we've been in these spaces, and we love to talk about it, and create and let men know, like, you got to understand the language, you got to know who you are. If you went through something, you got to understand, learn how to forgive yourself, and you got to
Yeah.
trust God, and you got to trust God in the process,
Yeah. For sure.
for
No, for
sure.
sure. So so before we get out of here, do you feel like we're seeing a wave, a change in the way men are stepping into the journey of addressing stuff, of healing from past pain, of of seeing things outside of the lens that their grandfathers, their fathers showed them and said, this is just what it is, and this is safe. Stay safe.
I,
Don't worry about how you feel.
yeah, I'm confident that it's actually occurring, even through this conversation. Like, more and more there's other spaces that you hear people are doing it. People are doing conferences. Even for myself, and I'm struggling with it because a guy wants me to do a master class. And I'm like, a master class? Like, man, I'm not doing no master class. He said, Doug, what you have is a gift, but you can give it away for free. Don't get me wrong. But when you put a value on it, people respect it more and holds them accountable. And it's going to be finding calm, how to navigate through life storms. And it's
Yeah.
basically the same thing that we talk about. So the more and more we continue to talk about it, we continue to set the example, because
Yeah.
that's what we're tasked with.
Mm-hmm.
Not only to talk about it, but to set the example with platforms like this. You know,
Yeah.
and you're the leader. Like you are the
I'm one
true
of.
leader.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
one of them.
One
But
of many. But
one
I
of
look. But
but
as I told you, I think that I wouldn't have felt safe to come out of the cave if I hadn't seen other men doing it.
yeah.
Like sometimes you need someone to say, I've already made you've already made the footprints there. I need you to follow me. When you gift men your vulnerability, when you give them your story, when you give them something that they wouldn't know if you hadn't shared it with them, it opens a door for them to say, I now have the opportunity to return that gift in my own form of vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
because this man just said something that resonated fully with me. Like I'm talking about, it awakened something in me that all of a sudden said, wait, you too? So wait, you too? Like you feel that way? Like you you do what? You
Mm-hmm.
you sit with you wait, you said what? And and it awakens a curiosity of like, well, can I tell you something now? And when people lean into that, it's like being able to fly since you were born, but you just now at this moment in your life actually jump into
Mm-hmm.
the air to actually realize that you can fly.
Yeah.
It's a superpower that a lot of men don't even realize they have. But when they jump into the air and realize, wait, so you mean to tell me I could fly since birth and I haven't done it? It's like, yeah, you've always been able to fly. You've always been able to share it, even if you didn't have all the words, even if you didn't know how to put it into words. I may have just given you the vocabulary to say, yes, brother, me too.
Exactly.
How you just said that? Yeah, give me the same order. That's me.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about it, I was going to say, and the thing about it is, you know, the society tells us that men they don't talk.
Mm-hmm.
Look,
Mm-hmm.
you got to kick me off the podcast now. Like the Doug. I mean, how long are we gonna do this? But but
We can
but
go as
but
long as you want, Doug.
no. But what I'm saying is, when you create that space where men
Yeah.
feel safe, there's a whole lot of talking going on. A
Yeah.
whole lot of talking. A whole lot of
Yeah. Yeah.
expression.
Yeah.
They don't they want us they want more and more. So going back to your original question, yes, they want more. We got to continue to feed them. We got to continue to feed them. And then I got to come at you because I don't like something I ain't like what you said,
Okay. Go ahead. Bring it back to me.
because I said you are a leader. You didn't say yes I am. You said nah, I'm one of many.
Yeah.
No, I don't want the deflection, because now we talk about the affirmation. I am a leader. Now we can talk about the others, but accept
You're
that,
right.
receive that, because you are a leader. You are a man of integrity. You are a man of character. You are a man that's, that's vulnerable to express his feelings. You are a man that wants to do what God has given you with the talent, the skill, and the ability to step out on faith, to be the provider, to be the husband, to be the son, to be who you are and how he created you to be. And I thank you
You're
for
right.
that. I
I
thank you for
appreciate that.
that. Yeah.
Thank you. You're right. You're right.
Take them flowers,
And
brother.
as I said, I'm gonna keep working on that. I'm gonna keep working on
I'm
it.
doing it.
I am
I'm
a
doing
leader
it.
though.
You're doing
Yeah,
it.
I'm
You're
doing
doing
it,
it.
Doug. I'm
You're
doing
doing
it,
it. You're
Doug.
doing it.
I'm gonna do it,
You're doing
Doug. I'm
it.
gonna
Yes,
do it,
sir.
Doug.
That's why, why you say let's go? Because that motivates me. First person got to be motivated is me. Inspired is me. To be encouraged is me.
Yeah.
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 That's what we do.
But you know what? I appreciate you because you're right. You've got to sometimes keep pushing that back on men when they say, "Nah, brother, that's not me." No. That's exactly who I see you are. Stop trying to get that back to me. That's yours.
Don't
That's
deflect it.
not yours to try to give to others. That's yours because I need you to sit with that. And yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah. That's real. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Well, Doug, hey, look, we can do this all night. But before we get out of here, though, man, I want to make sure I just give you the room to speak to as if we haven't already been, but just share whatever may be on your heart, whatever you may want to leave this audience with, whatever you feel like has just been something that hadn't been said enough. Like we can never say that enough. And maybe in a way give others who are listening the flowers, maybe even the soil to begin to grow in. Because sometimes before you can actually smell the flowers, you gotta sit in the soil. And that's not the worst place to be. I've been there and it was an important season for me.
Wow. I mean, even with that, man, something that just came to mind, as we say, as the Holy Spirit kind of downloads. And I remember seeing a rose in the crack of a concrete, still blossoming, still growing. So even when times get hard, and that goes for anybody that's listening, even when times get hard, trust and believe in God. And sometimes, as I said, help me with my unbelief. Be honest with yourself. But that rose can still grow in the concrete, can still grow during hard times. And know when it grows that you are wonderfully made. The God created you. Like there's no other Rob, there's no other Doug, there's no other whoever's listening, there's no other one that's like you. There's no duplicates. The fingerprints don't match. But continue to walk that path out and know that you're not alone. Continue to listen to this podcast because Rob is bringing some content. He's bringing some voices that you need to hear. Not only mine, but there's going to be thousands, and I'm speaking into existence, thousands and thousands and thousands more. The strength, and this is not an easy task to do. And, he told you to like and share. Take that opportunity to do that. This work ain't easy, but we know what God has laid out for us, and the same thing that the path that God has laid out for you. Let Him be the light under your feet, and I always say to be to the point of the direction that He wants you to go. Just trust the process and continue to be who you are. Continue to love yourself. So Rob, I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, man, just to come in here and, be myself, to open up and just talk. Um, but we understand how this world of podcasting works, and just thank you, man. Really, thank you. I appreciate it.
No, I really appreciate you coming today. I really appreciate God putting it on your heart to say, you know what, I'm gonna take some time out and I'm gonna sit. We're gonna make this happen. We're gonna do what God had already planned. He knew this day was gonna come.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it did. I'm glad we got to sit here and just really just unpack a lot of this, talk
Yes,
about
sir.
it, talk about
Yes,
how
sir.
it's looked,
Yeah.
and know that it's gonna fall on fresh soil. Know that it's gonna fall on a good soil. So no, I appreciate you coming today. I appreciate all those who were listening today. I appreciate you guys coming and just sitting back with me and Doug and just letting God speak through us in a way to where I hope that it ignited something in you. I hope it inspired something in you. I hope it allowed you to be able to take what we said and just like really like sit with that and receive that. Like receive that. As he told me, like receive it. Is yours. If you felt something, don't run from it. Don't ignore it. Don't pass it up, but receive it and know that what God is trying to do in your life, what he's trying to do in your story, what he's trying to do through you is going to be, man, I wish I could find a word that would just encompass like what he's done in my life, how he's transformed things and how he wants to do the same thing for you, how he wants to just blow your mind with just what he has in store. As Doug said it earlier today when we were talking, he was like, man, it's crazy. And I think that's the way I like to describe it. It's crazy. Like that's the only word I can come up with. It's crazy. What? So yeah, no, let him allow your crazy faith to open the door to the crazy works that he wants to do in your life, as we like to put it. So yeah, I thank you guys for joining me. I thank Doug for joining me. I thank you guys just for sitting with us and just enjoying another great episode. And I want to leave you guys with a great reminder that I enjoy to leave with people when they tell my heart or when I'm thinking about it, from my brother and friend, the late great Chad Height III, of the Rabbit Hole Show. If any of you guys had ever listened to the Rabbit Hole Show, he always said, we all have a story. We all have struggles. The good news is that you're not alone. So you guys be blessed. Love you guys. Love you, Doug. Appreciate you. Catch you guys in the next episode.
And that wraps up another episode of God's Glory and Men's Real Stories. I'm Justin Moore, and we want to give a huge thank you to all of you for tuning in and being part of our community. Your support means the world to us, and we hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as we did. If what you heard resonated with you, please consider subscribing and leaving a review on today's video. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. Don't forget to connect with us on social media at God's Glory and Men's Real Stories for updates, new episode clips, and to share your thoughts on today's episode. We love hearing from you. If this conversation happened to shed a light on past experiences of yours that may have been happy moments or maybe hurtful moments, feel free to keep the conversation going in the comments below, so as a community we can listen, pray with you, or point you to helpful resources. Join us next time for another great episode, and until then, let's give God the glory for all he's doing in our stories.